Mr. Coons.
It's certainly a possibility. I'm not in the tourism industry, I don't know, but that's something that it definitely makes a lot of sense, especially the way you explained it, Congressman, that it kind of hurts the image of the state a little bit. I think the bulk of it's probably going to have to do with the current economic situation, though. You know, if people are if they don't have as much money or they're losing their jobs, they're less likely to spend money on travel. That would be one of the first things that I think a lot of people would cut.
Okay, quick yes/no question. The DREAM Act, which would grant citizenship to children who are brought here illegally, and then with conditions they had to go to college for a couple of years, serve in the military for a couple of years. Yes or no?
Yeah, maybe with some changes.
The way it's written now, no.
I've not seen the DREAM Act as a piece of legislation, but I think that the DREAM Act, and again, as a teacher, we've got 12 years in most cases.
I was just looking for a yes or no.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. What changes would you want?
Got to be very careful that it's not designed to incentivize a family to take their child across the Arizona desert. My great fear is if the DREAM Act, the way I understand it to be written now, do you wake up one day and we're out collecting bodies out in the desert because we've had a wave thinking they might be able to take advantage of this. I'm comfortable with parts of the military service. The others, I believe, I would want to redesign from top to bottom.
Okay. Was there anything that you would want to add to your answer?
Yeah, the only thing is that, one, in order to get on this path to citizenship, it's either service into college, it's a student who has been here for a number of years. They had to come here at an early age. There's all kinds of conditions like that I don't think would encourage people just to sneak across the border in order to get their kid into school.
Okay. Let's move on to energy. In looking at both of your websites, I found it interesting. Congressman Mitchell emphasizes solar energy on his page on energy. Mr. Schweikert, you emphasize drilling for oil offshore and in ANWR, the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge. Tell us why your approach is better than your opponent's.
Well, my approach is everything. Yeah, I really do believe everything. And it comes down to something very, very simple. Think of the times we as the government has tried to pick winners and losers. Do you remember our experience with alternative fuels here, where everyone was out buying their gigantic SUVs because we were all going to drive with compressed natural gas, something someone voted for, and it almost bankrupted the state? How many of you are still investing in corn-based ethanol? Yeah, which has just collapsed. The fact of the matter is every time government steps up and chooses a winner or loser, it comes crashing down upon us. That's why I'm a big supporter of create a simple, fair, clean regulatory environment, a fair tax system, and let the market choose what's most efficient.
Okay. So, but I'm still trying to understand how that applies to energy. I mean, you're promoting.
But right now we have a system that we're producing. I like certain types of incentives for alternatives, but if you say it's going to be solar, and tomorrow someone else has another breakthrough, well, guess what? The money's going to the one that ultimately economically isn't going to be the great winner, and that's something. I'm also a big fan of.
Could you explain your support for drilling in ANWR and offshore areas?
Great example. Look at the disaster we just had in the Gulf. Why did that happen? Because we drove our drilling out into extreme deep waters instead of areas where if it was closer to shore, we could have managed it and controlled it. We could have done even horizontal drilling from shoreline and not put our environment at this type of risk. At some point, we're going to have to be rational. If we're using the petroleum products, is it better buying them from a country that wants to hurt us? It's irrational what we do now.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. One, unfortunately, we are still subsidizing oil and coal. And these are not good obviously for our environment. If we are going to become energy independent, we are going to have to create and invest in alternative sources, not just solar, but I say in solar because that's what Arizona should be, the solar capital of the world, because we have so much sunshine. We're putting a great deal of resources right now into technology of solar, but also through Arizona State and a few other places, private sources, we are doing it with algae. There's a lot of other ways to do it, but just to be putting, in fact, that's why I voted against cap and trade, because it was putting a heavy, heavy emphasis on coal and the carbon sequestration, which is really an unproven science. But right now, don't kid yourself, we are we are subsidizing coal and oil. If we're going to be subsidizing anything, we ought to be doing it with clean energy. And that's solar, that's wind, that's algae. It's certainly not the traditional type of energy that we have now, which is not good for our environment, and it's certainly not good to become energy independent with. We cannot become energy independent with oil.
Okay. Mr. Coons.
I agree with a couple of the points that were already made up here. Government shouldn't be picking winners and losers, and we shouldn't be subsidizing oil and coal. Government picked, you said, corn-based ethanol, and we see what happened with that. What I think is kind of interesting is that the question seems to assume that members of Congress are engineers, are knowledgeable in the way energy is supposed to work. I don't think anyone in Congress or anyone running for Congress really has the knowledge to say, here's the direction the country should go in terms of energy, that knowledge exists in that group of people. That's something I think should be absolutely left to the market. If people who knew what they were doing in terms of energy were able to invest their funds or to raise capital to research those things, then they would be able to figure out what is actually the best. If I know everything there is to know about solar energy and I can raise $1 billion to continue that research forward, I can maybe find this really good method of providing solar energy that's 1/10 the cost of what we're doing right now. But if I'm not allowed to do that because the government's taking my money and using it for what they think is best, that really hinders what's going on.
Okay. Congressman, in your 4 years in Congress, what vote are you most proud of?
The one I'm most proud of is the vote for the 21st Century GI Bill. The 21st Century GI Bill was one that I was the lead sponsor in the House. And what this did is it created a program for returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan, which is a better program that occurred than right after World War II. This bill provides books, fees, tuitions, and a living stipend for all of those returning veterans. It's good for 4 years. And what's really important about it, it's good for reservists as well as National Guardsmen. And not only did I say they have 15 years to use it, but also if they did not want to use it, they can pass this on to their spouse or to a child. Right now, there are 330,000 veterans taking advantage of this bill. A little over 1,000 of them are at ASU right now. The important thing is these soldiers came back with leadership skills. They came back with maturity. And many of them never even thought they could go to college. Many of them joined the service right out of high school, nor did they ever think they wanted to. But now with a scholarship like this, I think what we're going to do is we're going to tap into some resources that will create the next greatest generation. So I think that's the one I'm the most proud of.
Now the other side of the question, what vote do you wish you could have back to do over?
Well, yeah, that's a difficult one. We took 1,500 votes this year, so far 1,500 votes, and I'm not sure which one I would withdraw. I'm not sure.
You're not going to commit to one.
No.
Okay, Mr. Coons, Mr. Schweikert, what vote did he get right?
I'm actually going to step up. I actually really love parts of the Veterans Coming Home legislation to get them a path to do university education. And being someone that bleeds maroon and gold, I love the idea of them being here on my campus. As a vote that I believe we're going to suffer for many, many years.
Anticipating my next question.
I'm sorry, I thought you asked it both ways.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
So, Veterans Bill, terrific. Healthcare bill, I believe is going to be a disaster. Matter of fact, we already know. If you look at, when it was voted on, it was going to be this cost savings. Now we find out it's $1 trillion. When it was voted on, we were saying, hey, this is going to help small employers. Now we have the Brinker International saying they're going to take huge numbers of their employees and make them part-timers so they can get them off the books. It's becoming a disaster.
Coons.
Yeah.
Please?
No.
I can't say that I know the voting history inside now to be able to pick which one is a really great vote. I would probably point to the parts of the Veterans Bill as well. If the government is going to send people off into dangerous situations, it should be able to provide basic benefits and incentives for them when they come back. So I think that might be probably the best one. And agree with you on the health care bill. I'm actually the lead plaintiff in the Goldwater Institute's lawsuit against the health care bill. So I think that's pretty obvious where I stand on that one.
Okay. We've covered a lot of topics in this hour. Very briefly, in a minute or so, tell us about an issue we haven't talked about, or that people just don't talk, that doesn't get a lot of attention. That's important to you, Mr. Coons.
Well, I think the role of government, to me, is something that tends to get glossed over a little bit. We focus too much on very specific things and what the government should do in terms of controlling this or controlling that or directing things about us. To me, the role of government is really at the very most to protect our rights, which means to make sure that we don't get killed, stolen from, attacked, raped, stabbed, whatever it is. Protecting individual rights is really the only role the government should have. When it comes to a bunch of other things that the government does, people don't tend to see whether or not this is actually a proper role for government. Could this be better done by the private sector?
Mr. Schweikert.
I really wish there was more conversation and more adult conversation instead of where we're trying to do the political wedging game of entitlements and debt. The fact of the matter is, as a people, we are buried in debt. We will soon cross $14 trillion, and a lot of organizations out there say we have $100 trillion on the books on promises that we have to come through on in the next 75 years. If you love your children, do you like your grandchildren? Because you are burying the next couple generations in something that's absolutely unsustainable. It's hard to talk about. They're big numbers. They're difficult. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. And those decisions, the ones that make them, it ain't going to be good for their political careers. But we don't have a choice. If you love this republic, we got to stop nipping away at the little margins and little sides and say, we got to save this republic because we're burying ourselves in debt. We soon will be Greece if we don't deal with this.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, I think that the issue that I hear continue when I'm out talking to constituents is not only, obviously, jobs, the economy, and immigration, but I think more than anything else, people are upset because they feel that Congress is dysfunctional and that Congress is not working together. It's not solving our problems. And I'm a member of Congress, and I think it's dysfunctional. I think that the whole idea that we're not talking in a civil way, that everything has to be done along party lines, that people are bickering, that why can't people just plain get together and pass and do what's best for this country? I taught school for 28 years, and I have a number of students come up to me and ask how I like where I am. And I always apologize to them and tell them it's not the way I taught it. And people would say, well, knowing what you know now, would you teach it any differently? I says, no, because I might make cynics out of everyone, and we need people who are excited, who want to make a difference, and can bring about a change. And I think probably the most disappointing part of my time in Congress has been because of the partisanship and the fact that people look more to winning an issue than actually trying to solve issues.